Welcome to This Week in X for Wave X number 4, out on the 14th of July, 2021. Before we get into a full discussion, we're just going to talk about our top favorite moments of the issue, beginning with Tyler.
Zon and Zon as Filthy.
Fariha.
Dust, doing some dusting of Mars. And you, Peter?
Resurrection, one long-awaited one, was just a walk in the park. And now let's get into the full plot discussion of Way of X number 4. All right, everybody, we are here for a full discussion of Way of X number 4 out on the 14th of July. And this comes with our standard spoiler warning. We're going to get into all the details of this issue, the preceding issues, the rest of the X-Men line, perhaps other elements of the Marvel Universe. You just never know with us. So you've been warned. For Way of X number 4, first we're going to share our initial personal reactions before we get into the depths of our plot discussion. And that will begin with Tyler.
I like how this book makes you think that they are going one direction, and then just gives you something that is like kind of completely, not what you expect. And that kind of keeps me really interested in the book, because you don't know what you're going to get in every issue. So, and I mean, I think I'm getting used to Queen's art now. So it is not the greatest art, but it's good.
Fariha?
So I've been a Way of X stan from like issue 1, and that is continuing on with this as well. There's like so many cool moments and everything. And then as Tyler pointed out, that if you think that this is going to be about just the first law, but this time around we got to talk about the second law of Krakoa, kill no human, and what does that mean? And then there's like so many things. And then Dust just came through a door and then it was like, stop everyone, I need to go to work, which is like, it was such a great use of this character. And the thing is that it's also introducing the fact that just like the council, the Omega Mutant did the flashy show, but didn't necessarily finish the work. And there is some implication of that, which made my heart flutter, because it's like, it seems like Spurrier is like that. You all are not doing your job well. Just like there's like so many things going on with that. And then David, forgetting his
Legion.
But he Legion and Daddy Xavier had a moment over there, and then it's like, yeah, no, I don't like it. Right? It's just I don't know. Like there's so many good points. And everything, the story that the Lost says at the beginning, you can look at it as a story that Lost is saying. You can also look at it as like the story of Mystique and the Council in a lot of ways. Like it just like so many layers to that. I mean, I don't know. I was just all on board for it. It's like it's one of those things. I'm like, I'm not also sure where this is going, but I'm here for the ride. Just like the ride is just like so good. So, and the cast is completely different than what we have seen before, except for Nightcrawler and Legion and Zorn and Zorn. It's just like, it's like a different set of cast in this time. So it just like, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and I'm here for it.
Now some commentary from our remote correspondent this week, Harry.
Hey, This Week in X listeners, this is Harry. I'm enjoying my vacation. I'm underneath the bridge, and there are some ducks behind me. And I wanted to talk about Way of X number 4. It's not the best issue of this series by far. 1 or 2 are still very much the top of that list, but it's a marked improvement from issue 3, and I think it has a clear set of narrative stakes, some thematic developments, some emotional attachments, just very basic, solid comic stuff. But Cy Spurrier has a great voice, and he has a very nice development and conflict for Kurt to work through in this. Also, Fabio Cortez is the absolute worst, and he should go to mutant jail. I'm going to give this issue a 4 ice cream accidents out of 5.
For me, a lot of my appreciation of this issue comes to part of that opening quote on the first page. That expansion is always impressive, of course, providing that is one chooses to focus on the shiny new vistas instead of the spaces between them. And Wave X is about all of the spaces between in all of Krakoan culture. You really get the sense that Spurrier has gone through and read every comic that has happened in this line. And much like Tyler, he has written down all of the possible missing receipt moments of all of these, whether it be character receipts or whether it be receipts of like, what are we doing about the gravitational pull of the small moons of Mars on the dust? And this book is about all of those spaces between. And I love that. I mean, I think that it's great because it's not just rewarding to continuity nuts. A lot of the things here, you don't have to have read a lot of X-Men comics because it's constructed for you right before your eyes. Like the thing with Dust. We love Dust. She's one of my favorites. Anytime you ask me, make an X-Men team, you have 7 characters, I will always pick Dust. But like, you didn't need to know anything about Dust to appreciate how good this moment with Dust is. And I think that that's true for all of the moments in this book, which is what makes it, to me, it's great. Like, it's rewarding if you love the X-Men, but you don't have to be an X-Men expert in order to love it. I think that's the same thin line of risk that Spurrier treads as well, because he's basically constructing straw men in a way that he didn't have to on a title like Constantine, because all of those straw men were real problems in real Britain. And since he has to create all of these problems from scratch, it is inevitable that some of them will not work for certain readers, and some of them are just going to totally fall flat and be kind of the wrong direction to go. And I think what we saw last issue is he picked a number of straw men to construct that either totally just didn't work in the context of Krakoa or really, really didn't work for specific readers for very specific and valid reasons. And I think that that's the danger that a book like this will always run the risk of creating. But I think this issue just nailed it again and again. It was so satisfying to me. And this is 100% what I'm looking for out of an X book that's not a flagship book. Fill in the spaces between. Well, this one has so much that I think we are just going to go straight through it and try to talk about everything, hopefully. Nightcrawler, save us. So let's start with that story that Fariha brought up. It's Lost, this wonderful mutant Lost. She's been brought to Mars because the gravitational pull will maybe make it easier for her and easier for people to be affected by her powers, which she doesn't have great control over. And she's this natural storyteller. And she tells this story about a society where somebody has done an awful crime, but when the person who's aggrieved, who the crime was done against, comes back, the story is, well, we've wiped the slate clean since then. So you have to give up all of your feelings. You have to give up your need for revenge and just be a part of this society. And this rings true through so much of Krakoa. Not only does it ring true through the whole, we've granted every villain amnesty, but it rings true through a lot of the specific relationships between people that are supposed to just like work again, and they don't. But then also, to Legion's point, yeah, you say that it's the clean slate, but when you want to prosecute Sabretooth to shove him in Krakoa's deep dark hole, you did it anyway, even though the law wasn't in effect yet. So it's like, the rules are always being constructed as they're being made. Fariha, I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but this was just so wonderful to me. At first I was like, oh, really? Are we going to do this flash the stupid story? Like, you know how I am. I'm like, I want X-Men. What is this allegorical bullshit? But no, it was great.
In the X-Men book, you said that what is this allegorical bullshit? My friend. No.
Well, yeah, but allegorical bullshit, like, it's the pirate story in the middle of Watchmen. I'm like, I'm not looking for X-Men to take a break to tell me a fairy tale. Like, you've already got the X-Men there, but it did work ultimately. Yeah. Okay.
No. Yeah. So the thing is, like, I mean, to be honest, like, this is the first time I realized Sabretooth was put in the ground before the laws were made. Like, now I'm like, oh no, justice for Sabretooth.
Yeah.
Like, I did not notice that at all. Since this is the first time I'm noticing it. I'm like, oh no! I actually went back to read it. I'm like, yeah, they came up with rules afterwards.
Because he killed them in House of X1.
Right. And then
the laws weren't established yet.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, that's not how laws work. You can't punish people for laws that was created after the crime. No. And then, that kind of shocked me in a way. I'm like, whoa, we did not notice that. We've never talked about this, but here it is. And the story itself, actually, when before I knew how it kind of connects to Lost, and Lost is actually telling her own story. I thought that this was an allegory of like Mystique, like, Mystique or any of the other mutants.
I thought it
you
was
can
like an
tell from, especially
Amanthian
mutants.
legend, like that it was actually somebody from Amenth
Right.
telling the story, and I was going to be like, oh, like
yeah,
and
because it started in
Amenth, you know,
Mars.
because on Amenth it would be like, there's no time for regret or recriminations. You just forge forward with the strongest.
But that's that actually kind of falls into that, because even if you look into it from that point of view, it's like it did it happen, and it's kind of repeating itself. And then the fact that this is kind of like a very archetype stories, that it's a story that we have seen before, and this is the whole basis of this whole X-Men era that we are currently going through. And then a lot of the time these stories don't end well. So I mean, so that's why I was kind of like, all about this. I'm like, well, whose story is this? Like, is this like a real, like, is Spurrier saying that the basic level, no, this is lost story and then this is it, or Spurrier saying something more deeper about the whole era, this new era of X-Men? So I was like, oh.
Tyler, what about you?
I mean, yeah, this is like the counter argument to amnesty for past deeds, because we have seen both sides of it, right? We have seen that in some cases, like for Mask, for Proteus, for even like, some Wild Thing or Malice, and even Apocalypse, there is an argument for this amnesty, right? But then you flip it around and you look at Sinister, you look at Farouk, you start to question that, oh, these people are probably not going to change. So giving them amnesty just means that you're giving them room to do more damage. So basically, I think it's just Spiro is basically just saying that there are shades of grays. It can never be black and white. So, everything has degrees. And I loved it for that. And then the other thing is that, why did they just give Lost a tent on Mars? Like, give her something. Yes, she's
like
more
just
comfortable there,
around
but
the campfire.
yeah. I mean, didn't you just grow a house?
So to that point though, because the thing is, like, didn't they make terraformed Mars to be like Earth? So how is the gravity any different in Mars that it's not going to affect?
Yeah, didn't Magneto like bring a lot more iron to the core, but it's still slightly less. Yeah. Like I think they made it livable, but they didn't necessarily make the gravity equal to Earth's gravity.
Yeah.
So that's the point though, because that's where I'm going to put my engineering hat on. In even 0.1% difference in gravity will destroy Earth as we know it.
Because it'll change Mars's orbit, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, so that's one of the reasons I'm like, is it because the Earth gravity is different? That's why they're having the problem that Sand is fixing. So maybe that's what it is. But the thing is that I was not sure why like Mars would be any different for her. But I'm like, okay, sure, I'll go with it for now.
Yeah.
But how good is that the character of Lost, right? Like, she just debuted like 4 issues ago, and we know so much about her. Like, I don't know, there's something about the way she's being put in there. Like, I feel like I know the characteristics, I know what she is, and it just, I don't know, there's I'm just really about her. I don't know why, but she grew on me.
Nice.
The thing that, I mean, there's some implications of the scene I think that we'll get into as we talk more about Cortez later in the issue, so I want to save those. But there's this great quote, "It's not a story, not yet. Stories must have endings," which really kind of feels like a lot of X-Men readers could stand to hear this. And I mean, here we are every week on the show, kind of looking at the issues issue by issue. But sometimes even we need to be reminded to like give this stuff chance to happen. Like, yes, every issue should be entertaining on its own. That's why they're being sold as single issues. You can only enjoy them as they're being sold. But it's not a story yet, because stories have endings and you can't judge something that's in the middle. And I think that that's part of that reflects back on this whole amnesty thing, because it's kind of like every action has an equal reaction. If you grant somebody amnesty for the thing that they did, are you also granting reparations to the person that it was done to? Because it's a chain of events. If you just say, it's not like student loan forgiveness where there's no aggrieved party. There's only, the government that's saying we're willing to lose the money on these loans. These are people who killed other human beings, who put people through psychological torture. And what what is the amnesty for that? Why didn't you think to build that in to begin with? And that to me is not a critique of the mutant laws. It's just one of those spaces between. I went on a long Twitter thread rant that got widely shared last week about this idea of like the whole reason that there's amnesty is because Xavier's dream up until the point of Krakoa was all kind of a lie. Because even if he really meant it and he really believed in it, Mura knew ultimately that the pure unfiltered version of Xavier's dream was never going to work. And Krakoa represents Xavier, whether you want to assume the best of him or the worst of him, finally saying like, okay, Mura, you're right all along. Let's do this Krakoa thing. Let's do the resurrections that I thought of way back when. It's time to put all these other things in action. So like that's part of this idea of amnesty and a slate, of wiping a clean slate too, because the villains were reacting to something that was a lie. So you have to, it's all about action and reaction. So we're granting the villains amnesty because they were villainous in a world that was a lie, but now we're also not looking at the result of granting them amnesty. I'm fascinated by it. Okay, but then let's dig a little bit more as a group, since only Fariha got to talk about it.
And then to that,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying that to that point though, because I think that the whole amnesty thing began with we need Sinister. And if you're gonna forgive Sinister, because without Sinister, none of this happens. No resurrection.
Well, and Apocalypse.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So the thing is, if you're going to give two of them, now Amal Farouk is going to come and it's like, what about me?
Where's my amnesty?
You have to do this blanket thing. Yeah. But yeah, so you have to do this
Mystique, right?
Thing,
there's this idea of like they're going to keep Mystique close because you got to keep your enemies close, and Mystique can't just be allowed to like exist in this world and have her own ambitions. They've got to have her under their thumb. It all comes from Mura. Like Mura's the one who's like, well, you're going to need Apocalypse because I've lived a life with him before. You're going to need Sinister in order to make this work. You're going to want to keep an eye on Mystique, but then they have to, as a reaction to that, they have to grant amnesty to everybody.
Well,
right, but then when you're trying to do that, you forget about those they hurt. I mean, it all comes down to like, we talked about it again and again. It's like the power that be will do things and would never understand the consequences of it. Same goes for like, we talked about it, like make more mutant. Okay, what does that mean though? So it just like, it's kind of like another aspect of it.
But this is kind of like Hickman basically blowing up the themes of X-Men, right? Because X-Men has always been about forgiveness. They forgave Rogue, as the very first villain, and then that became a trope because you had Sabretooth. Yeah, Sabretooth taking, sort of like taking over Wolverine's position in the X-Men and things like that. So yeah, but I mean, those are really good points that the two of you made.
Well, and also, I think the other great thing here is that the volcano wasn't the only thing the Omegas botched, which Fariha got to give her comment on. But again, it's all about hubris. It's all about oversight. It's all about actions and reactions in the space between. They thought they created this grand thing on Mars, but they created it in the span of fireworks. Yeah. There's going to be so many other problems that crop up they haven't thought of, but it's the same thing that's wrong with Krakoa. Tyler?
No, I agree. I mean, I completely agree. And once again, it is the young mutants that comes in and sort of save the day, do the cleanup, because they didn't think about it. And then the youngsters is like, what? So because you guys the older generation did such a good job, now we have to suffer the consequences. And then, and I don't think anyone asked Surya to come in and say, hey, go fix that sandstorm. She probably knew about it or learned about it from whoever was there and decided that, I have to step in and help.
And she's probably doing it every day. It's like the tide. She's basically said, well, look, this is talking about, how people get labor placed on them. And sometimes it's emotional labor and sometimes it's just labor. She's like, you, as the mutant who can do this, you have left this ability with me because nobody has chosen to problem solve. It's like somebody in an office who has to run this certain report every day because nobody will think to automate it. And that's just an hour of their job every day. They've got to run this report because nobody will automate the report.
I am the one who automates. I have done it in my job.
Yeah, I will be like, look, I automated this report for you, asshole.
1 hour. Yes. So the thing is that introduction of Dust works in 2 levels for me though, because it's first this, what Tyler talked about, that she's the young mutant who's taking care of it, and she's probably going to go to Quentin is like, you didn't think about this idiot, you're one of us. Quentin is quintessentially a young mutant and didn't think about it. But yeah, but the thing is, like, it's something that blew my mind, because when we were celebrating all of this in Planet Size X-Men, it was never even mentioned, because it was like a fireworks.
It was
like,
about
show those humans. And now here we are talking about those things in the middle. And yeah, like, it's just like, that was so like that, like, it blew my mind. But the thing is also, introduction of Dust also means introduction of Islam into the conversation of religion in Krakoa, because the thing is, it is a branch of like Christianity. It's like all Judeo-Christian religion. It's all like all the things, because she is very religious. Like, we have that has been established in New Mutants and when she was first introduced and everything. So how does she feels about all of this, and how does Nightcrawler's new religion, which he will tell you again and again, is not a religion. Son, it is.
Well, unless it's
how
drunk.
does
Unless
Well, she even says something religious, I expect. And he's like, it's not really a religion per se,
Right. So the thing is, like, how her faith is kind of plays into this. Because the thing is, like, I mean, I was raised in a Muslim, home, and we have a very much similar idea of heaven and hell, like Catholic religion has. And so it's like the whole resurrection, how is she dealing with it? I really, really hope this is not her only appearance. Like, there is some discussions about that come. And you know what? Bring G. Willow Wilson to write a guest write that part, so that you, or call her, talk to her, get her opinion, get this in writing, because it can be so interesting if this is actually explored. So seeing her over there, I was like, woo! Because of that.
Well, and of course, G. Willow Wilson took over the Dreaming from Cy Spurrier over in the Sandman universe on DC, one of my favorite books for a few years running now. So they probably do have a professional relationship of discussing dangling plot threads. Spurrier, pick up the phone, man.
Yeah.
Yes, just call her, ask her about this.
Well, now I want to move on to the middle portion of this issue, which I was so tickled by this. I went back and reread it so many times. It has so many, it's like a layer cake of delicious dessert here, because Gorgon is in Central Park. How he got there, the implication is Cortez just pushed him through a gate when he wasn't paying attention. So Gorgon has finally been resurrected after X of Swords. He's honed in some way. It seems like his honing is maybe that he can't control the fine tuning of his psychic abilities to, have empathy and hear people's thoughts quite as much as he had before. So Cortez is like, this is a wonderful kind of nuclear game of chicken failsafe for me. I'm just going to kick Gorgon through this gate, and I will affect his powers while he is in misery in the middle of New York City in Central Park. I guess maybe we can read this as happening just before X-Men #1, because it feels like it wouldn't read quite the same if X-Men 1 had already happened. And if I stop controlling Gorgon, he'll kill human beings, and then you'll have to put him in the hole. So you can't come and put me in the hole, because as soon as you take me away, you'll have to put Gorgon in the hole too. To which Kurt's response is like, that's assuming negativity. That's assuming bad human nature. What if I make everybody look on the bright side of human nature? Then you're just screwed, because your whole strategy is based upon thinking about the worst of everyone. Who wants to talk?
Well, I mean, okay. First of all, Gorgon is not honed. Gorgon died in Otherworld.
Oh, right, not honed. I mean,
so he's scrambled. He's
scrambled, not honed.
Yeah,
honed, you died in a month.
Yeah, correct.
Scrambled, you died in Otherworld.
Yeah, so he's kind of like Rockslide, where he's kind of like
he's mixed with some other version of him, maybe.
No, I think they redefined it now, because remember when Rachel went into Rockslide, she can only go back to the time where he died.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so basically he's kind of like a child here, and there's this line where he says, where Man Bun Mac Weezerface said that he's like a half-wit child. So that's the thing, I think so. And but is a really interesting way of telling us readers that hey, 3 laws is not a legal system.
Yeah.
Because there's so many loopholes. And he's just saying that, well, I didn't do anything. I didn't kill anyone. I just boosted the power, which is my mutant power. I boosted the power of another mutant. Nothing wrong with that.
No, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm
I
just
didn't
sitting
do
here in the
anything
park.
wrong. Yeah. So I think that's the thing. Like the laws of Krakoa is not a justice system. There is no system at all. And
Nope.
and that is where I think that this is so brilliant. It is supposed to be funny, but it also tells you that hey, look at this hole. Like like Peter said, look at the gaps. So I mean, I love this.
Fariha, what about you?
So, I mean, to see Gorgon's downfall from Secret Warriors to like now was heartbreaking to say. And not to mention, it was also like the fact that how he was. It reminded me of Way of X, how Magneto would not approve of this. Like for Fabian doing this, like it's like a humiliation of a mutant by human, which I am like, because this is something kind of like something similar that Nightcrawler tried to do to Magneto in like in the Way of X1, where he like in and then making fun of him, and it kind of falls in that. And then these humans are taking picture while this child like person who's not, who's mentally handicapped and just like kind of like he's blind, he's mentally handicapped, and he's kind of like on all four and trying to kind of tell you like make it stop. I mean, the whole thing was so disturbing. And then Fabian is just sitting there and just pontificating or whatever it is that he was doing. It was just like, it was just so disgusting to look. And I was like, I mean, that is the point of it. And I was like, I don't like this, but I can't look away. Like, it just like, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing was, and he was supposed to be a captain of their defense force. And here he is like this. I mean, everything about that was so, and also brings the point, what on earth Sage is doing all day? Like, seriously, what is she doing? How does she not know Fabian pushed Gorgon off why is Fabian and Rockslide is not under some kind of protective custody? Because they are literally children now and they need to be protected. So there's like a lot, I mean, I was kind of more like kind of connected to that layer of it. It's like, where is the security? Where is the law? Where is the system? What is this banana republic? It just like, I don't know. But hey, we have Mars. So
yeah.
But I enjoy
And we have
though.
Treehouse.
I think the reason
Oh,
it
that's
really wound up working for me is that Nightcrawler doesn't solve it with laws, and he doesn't really solve it with religion. He actually solves it with this moment that is very Nightcrawler. It's very something he did for Kitty all the time back in the day. He just puts on a show. And he's like, your assumption about the worst parts of human nature and the fact that they will create a feedback loop, that I'm here to take you away, that you're here to make sure Gorgon doesn't kill people, and that people hate Gorgon so much that they're going to kill him, can just be solved with a smile. And like, you don't need and it's almost the flip side. It's like, you don't need laws to dictate this. We don't have to have a trial. You can just ask people to smile, and that will actually fix a lot of these problems. So I actually thought that was like an interesting converse to this whole, like, we need more laws. The laws aren't enough to make a government. It's like Nightcrawler's other message is like, or we could just ask people to be the best versions of themselves. And that actually fixes a lot of this. It doesn't in a whole society. It's not going to work through all Krakoa. That's actually their failure. But it's the difference between operating in the macro and the micro. In the micro, Nightcrawler can rely on that and will fix things. And he can visit someone personally and be like, I'm going to fix this by being a circus, act. In the macro, you can't fix things like that way because societies will move in a direction and you can't get everybody in the society to just act on goodwill all the time.
So you know how there's all this feel-good story of like, oh, boy sold Xbox to pay for his friend's medical bill.
Right, but it doesn't address the systemic inequality that's like, why does this other kid have a medical bill? Community comes together to pay for $100,000 wheelchair for a 2-year-old. Why are we charging $100,000 for wheelchairs for a 2-year-old?
Exactly. This is most of the time when I see those stories, I'm like, yeah, no. So I think this is why, I mean, when I saw the resolution of it, I could not help but roll my eyes a little bit, because I'm like, okay, I get like this is like a one small thing that you solved, but it does not solve the bigger problem, because it really doesn't. And then his punishment is going to be, you get to talk. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if that is a punishment.
But that's not going to end well, I think.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the whole data page about Dr. Nemesis's whole
Oh,
assessment
so great. I had
about,
so much fun
like,
thinking of all the obscure obscenities that had to be bleeped out that they couldn't print in a comic book. I mean, you start out with some obvious ones, but then you got to start going down the path, and I enjoyed that.
Right, and then I don't know what the thoughts are. Sometimes a blip is just a blip. I don't know. Listeners, viewers, tell us what
Sometimes a
you think
bleep is just a bleep.
Yeah, exactly. What does that mean? So it's just like there's so many things you can put. And after seeing that whole scene, I was like, I hate this character. Oh
I
my
know,
god.
and you don't know him, right? So like the first time you saw him was in Sword.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
you
he
don't
was,
have the
like,
history of hating him
slimy.
that Tyler and I have.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's just carrying on. My god. It's just and the thing is, things he's doing are not. He says that he's Magneto's biggest acolyte, but everything he's doing is so anti-Magneto currently. Current
Yeah.
Magneto's standard of mutants and mutant behavior. So it just I was like, so you're not actually. You're just your own person.
But that's
He's
almost
not.
like a comment on the nature of cultural and religious movements as well, right? That Cortez wants to keep saying he's an acolyte to this thing that happened at a specific time. There was a specific cultural context that Magneto has long abandoned, but he's still an adherent to this thing, and he's treating it like it has relevance in the modern day. And everybody else is like, Cortez, this is not the human mutant relation of the modern day. You need to get past it. But he's stuck in his ways, worshiping this version of mutant dominance that isn't even relevant anymore.
Nope. Exodus doesn't care about that.
Yeah, even
now.
Exodus gave it up, Cortez.
Yeah.
And Exodus could move on. Anybody can move on.
Yeah.
But it's
Sorry,
all
the
the way
final
of
thing
X.
Sorry. I think there's a delay still
A little bit.
exists. Yeah, sorry. So I may have tried to interrupt you, Peter. I wasn't meaning to. Another point over there is something that Fabian said, that you're gonna kill him and they're gonna resurrect him, and who knows what comes out of that. So I feel like none of the otherworld death has been resurrected twice and again, and who knows what comes out. That I thought was a little bit fascinating too. But poor Parker.
Well, I mean, we've been waiting. I mean, this was one of our hanging receipts, and now we've got something. So it'll be interesting to see. Is he now part of this title, or is this just for this one gag with Cortez? Should be interesting to follow. But now we have a third whole interesting plot. And I mean, and we both really loved, I loved the Park one. You loved the Dust one. This one was had something Tyler loved. Legion and Xavier sit down for a meeting in public at the Blue Lagoon, partially because David has a pair of bodyguards with black holes and stars in their heads who are under explicit direction to vaporize David's brain if he loses control. Perhaps Professor Xavier should have a similar pair of bodyguards ready to vaporize his brain, because as this discussion continues, it's Xavier, and Xavier gets closer and closer to asking what's really behind this, because he senses that there's something wrong on the island, and he's pushing, and Legion is like, you can't push here, you've got to trust me. But in this very paternal way that he has, this very patriarchal way that he has, Xavier can't, and he pushes too hard, and the psychic feedback of Onslaught manifests, and unfortunately Zorn and Zorn need to commit mass murder of every mutant that's in the Blue Lagoon to cleanse them of this moment of infection. Wow.
That was whoa, did that just happen? I was thinking about that. Did that really happen?
It happened. It happened.
Know.
Oh, it did.
Oh,
it did. God. And then Legion's reaction to that is well, tell the party to cancel their launch plan. That was his reaction.
And then he puts a gate in his brain. He puts the seed in his own head.
That was crazy.
Right.
I was thinking,
why did he do that?
No, that's the thing. I don't understand that part. But the other thing also is that initially I was thinking, why do you need the seed and not the sapling? Because usually they have the sapling.
No, but I think sometimes they cultivate the saplings ahead, but the implication is it usually
starts with the seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then why is Xavier in charge of the seeds?
Yeah, who's normally the seed dispenser? Is it Black Tom? Who usually, when you're hey, I want to build a gate somewhere because I want to go visit my family, what's in charge of that?
I mean, Wolverine built a secret gate somewhere on Krakoa. And you know what I mean.
Let's make him because he's the tourist guy. He's the one who gives everyone tours, so he's the one in charge. But here's the question though: is Xavier dead too? In this?
Yes.
Because his helmet is on the
helmet is
ground.
explicitly next to his skull.
Yeah.
So Jean
exactly.
Grey is going to
Okay,
get
so
summoned up to
he's
do the
also
psychic
Yeah.
resuscitations here.
The psychic thing as well. But here's the thing: because Zorn and Zorn now committed. Mutants. It's not
Only
mutants.
mutants.
They kill all the
It's only
you want.
mutants.
Yeah, only like that's true. But yeah, the thing is though, it's just like I don't know. I mean, I was shocked by it. I was laughing though at his reaction to it. It's like, let's just cancel those lunch plans.
No, but the other thing is also is like it really is a direct slap at Xavier, right? Because it says that, well, firstly he say Legion said that empathy was never your thing, which is 100% true. And then the other thing is like, well, if
It's just
I
lied into
can,
people's brain.
yeah, if I cannot get it from you by asking, I'm just going to take it, and that is kind of nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think that
They're never going to be a reconciliation between those two, right? They're never going to be okay. Like, never.
But so often the reason that can't happen is posed because it's like Legion's so out of control. Legion's such a monster. Legion. And this is one of the first times that I really feel like it's much more on Xavier, or as much on Xavier. Like Legion's at his most rational here. The only other time I can really feel like I can say that is when they're in the back half of Carrie's run on Legacy, when they're going after all of the escaped personalities of Legion. That's one of the only other times that Legion and Professor Xavier are somewhat on the same footing. But at the same time, Legion's chasing down a bunch of escaped personalities, so it's not that equal footing. But yeah, I love this. I also love trying to figure out who is all there. I mean, Pixie, who the series opens with the whole, like, you just haven't been resurrected yet. You haven't had your moment. But then here, like, again, the subtlety of Spurrier picking Pixie to be in the scene. It's like, but now it's just commonplace. Death is just commonplace. Pixie's going to get killed again. Loa, Dazzler, Nemesis, one of the original Hellions. I'm not quite sure which one it is. Because he's who was
the
it?
one that with energy.
Yeah, but it's not Jetstream's power. Does it work like that?
Yeah,
really?
Jetstream doesn't come up from his hand.
So I couldn't figure out who that was.
Yeah, DJ is there too.
Yeah, so it's like, and they're all just dead. Nemesis is gonna have to regrow all the mushrooms that he had going on his scalp right now.
Oh, is it part of his will though? Like, you have to regrow it. Like, how does that work? Like, or he does it himself? Like, it's not. I don't know. It's part of the backup.
Yeah, and Blob's gonna have to regrow that mustache. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. But again, this really shows how this onslaught presence is like bubbling just under. It's almost like if you look too directly at it, it's going to form. And so part of why Legion doesn't want anybody other than him or Nightcrawler to address this problem is like, if you focus on it too much, it's going to subsume you, and we can only kind of attack it from the margins. And he only trusts Nightcrawler, but almost in a metaphorical way about how Nightcrawler can use his power to kind of dance around something physical, that he's trusting that Nightcrawler has the nuance to dance around this onslaught problem, because otherwise, if you look right at it, it's just going to become a worse problem.
Mm-hmm. So
here's the
Fariha's
question: is Onslaught considered a mutant?
He's a psychic manifestation.
Yeah.
Like he's more like the Shadow King. Like he's a amorphous.
So is he?
He was born out of Magneto and Xavier's psyche. So it's not like Malice, who had a body originally.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking. Like, so what kind of rights he has?
Or you could. I mean, Tyler, you could take the other perspective, right? That like he's their child and he's a disembodied mutant, and we've tried to find bodies for other disembodied mutants, right? I mean, Proteus is a disembodied mutant and he gets to live in Xavier's husks, right? Mm-hmm. That was the whole concept of Proteus. So why would we not give a body to Onslaught, a disembodied mutant? But then is it a clone?
Because you
is
don't
it
do
a subsidiary of what is Onslaught?
Well, in that case, like, why are we bringing Gabby back then? She's a clone.
We might be, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Like, what's his right? What rights he has?
Well, Tyler, what do you think he is? What is he, Tyler?
I mean, I feel like he was never a person.
No.
So he's just a manifestation.
Yes.
So for example, are you going to resurrect Dark Phoenix Jean?
I don't know. Does Dark Phoenix Jean wants to come back?
Yeah, but that's
But if the
that's
Phoenix
question,
Force
right?
came back, I mean, could there be another Avengers versus X-Men where the Phoenix Force is now, spoilers for Avengers, the Phoenix Force is inhabiting someone else in the Marvel Universe right now. And could the X-Men be like, no, screw that. She's supposed to be in a Jean body. Like, that, it's kind of the same thing.
Oh, I know.
Mm,
So I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
that's the question mark here, right?
Mm.
But before we forget, I can't remember. Is it Fariha or is it Peter who asked that question? Why does Legion wants a seat in his head?
Because it's a sacred space.
Yeah, that's what I was in.
Yeah, I've well, it's a temple, which kind of tracks that it's a sacred space. But why is it a sacred space?
Well,
Yeah,
we
but he
saw.
also, but then he goes to. No, sorry, I'm saying that then he goes back to Mars and tries to fix something. So is he fixing the problem that Dust is dealing with? Is that the reason? But then how is the gate gonna help?
Yeah, I didn't understand why they had to go to Mars to have that scene.
Yeah.
That was like kind of like, ooh. But it made me think of what happened in the second issue with the Anomi, second issue in Legion's brain, and how they were trying to use his brain to model the breakdown of society, but then he got resurrected from the backup of himself that he put into Nightcrawler. So like, what is the significance of him putting a gate from Krakoa, where Enemy is actually happening in real time, to his head, where it was also modeled? Is he going to ask everybody to escape into his head while they like reboot Krakoa? Like, there's layers.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's like, oh, we are creating a sacred refuge for a temple. Why?
All interesting questions. And there's only one issue, 2 more issues of this, and then a one-shot finale before whatever form season 2 is going to take. So it will be, this remains, I think it recovered really nicely from 3. I think it's attacking the right spaces between. We've got some really interesting straw men built in this issue. And I am, again, incredibly excited and would pay extra to read Way of X number 5 ahead of its release. And that has been our discussion of Way of X number 4. So if you're looking for more discussions of X-Men comics, we've got them. We've discussed everyone since the beginning of X of Swords until now. And the reason we get together and do this every week is why, Fariha?
X-Men is better when it's not together.
That's right. So on the behalf of Tyler, Fariha, and myself, thanks for making it better together with us this week. I would be interested to know from you, what of these scenes was your favorite moment in Way of X, since we all had a different one, or did you latch onto something different entirely? Please let us know below in the comments. And until we get to see you again, we hope that you are well.
Bye.